Hello, Alan Gilbert again with Autodesk. This is the fifth installment of the AutoCAD Civil 3D Tips and Tricks from the Fall Florida Users Conference 2015. So for tip number 5, we're going to take a look at the Cogo Geometry Editor that was added in the Pro Pack Predictivity Pack number 1, Civil 3D 2016. Show the differences between it and the older or existing coordinate geometry editor that's been in Civil 3D for quite some time. So in this video, we're going to talk about some of the new things and differences in the new Cogo editor. If we go to the toolbox in Productivity Pack 1, we have the new Cogo editor in the software. It was also in a Pro Pack of 2015. And we're going to compare this to the older Cogo editor that's under Analyze, Survey, Cogo editor. And we're really going to focus on kind of the differences between Cogo points, dealing with Cogo points, and closure. So let's talk about Cogo points first. So I could build a polyline and load these from here. You can see I have a polyline loader. But what if I just want to deal with straight up Cogo points? Well, before I knew the syntax, the way I would probably start here is select my point 1. And it is a closed loop, so it asks me there, is that going to be the same point of closure to compute from? And I say yes. And so then I would basically click the angle direction, say pick Cogo points in drawing, pick my first point, and pick the second point. And now that I see the syntax, I could just type. So in distance field, you can see I'm forming the traverse there. So if I knew my point numbers, I could do this around the traverse. And in this case, I have a closure point. It's actually a point of missed closure because I've already told where I want it to compute closure from. So where I missed at is from 4. I'm going to go back to a point called 5. So in other words, I actually had a Cogo point at the misclosure point in this case. There we go. And just to see that, I can click one of these select buttons that'll let me zoom in and out, and you can see the misclosure. I'll escape out of there. Just a quick tip, if you ever want to be able to zoom in, just click one of the graphical select buttons and it'll let you move in. So I have no adjustments. So let's just look at raw misclosure. There we go. There's a closure direction. We're out 2 foot misclosure. And again, that was a difference in the way closure is done too. In this version, we actually selected that point. And so if this was an open traverse, I basically just said, okay, go from point 1, and maybe the closure point was point 10. And it would have a different coordinate here, and that's fine. It was just basically a connecting closed traverse versus a loop closed traverse as this is. Let's take the difference in these two areas with the new Cogo editor. Notice this is for those that have not seen it, this is a much different window than before. And again, let me adjust this a little bit for my resolution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Entry tab, and I'm just going to start a new traverse. So I'm back to square one, and when you start, you really can't do anything until you have a starting point. So under location, I can simply key in 1 here, or I can graphically pick the Cogo point. Notice the prompt says pick the Cogo point, or I can type X if I just want to pick a location in the file. There we go. Another nice thing, notice the difference here. I can zoom in and out. So this dialog allows me to interact with the zoom commands, which is great. So now for my next Cogo point is 2. You can see how I'm simply moving down. Which was, again, much faster. I'm getting the graphical feedback on my directions. I have the reverse options as before. Drop right on my misclosure. So here, my control point, I don't really know because I started with point 1. There's no control button here or anything like that. If I go to the Balance tab, I'll move this up a little bit, apologize for the resolution. It automatically assigned my first point as a control point. But where is the closing point? Am I closing back to 1? Does it close at all? Notice my closure summary doesn't know what to do. 1 and 0. Notice the balance is not available to me. So how do I tell it that 1 should be my closing point and that that last line should be closing on 1 even though it closes on 5? Again, it's just using that Cogo point to get these direction and distances. Those Cogo points mean nothing about the traverse. It doesn't know that 5 should be 1. It doesn't care. So I'm simply going to go on this line under control point, type 1. As soon as I hit the tab key, notice the feedback changes. I immediately get closure results here. 2 feet just as before, same direction. If I want to balance, I can run a compass just to see what the results are, or I can go back to no balance. So can get some similar results, but a little bit different how you can the control points. And this applies whether it's a Cogo point or if it was just a coordinate. So if you started a traverse, let's go back to entry, and instead of picking a Cogo point, I typed in X to just grab an XY, and I just picked at this location. Notice I've got an XY just like before. I can say 2, just like before. But now when I go, again, I don't have enough for balance here. But now my control point is just a coordinate. So again, how do I deal with that with this last line to get closure? I have no closure right now. Simply select that field, Control C, Control V. As soon as I tab, I get my results directly in. A little bit different because of where I clicked. I didn't snap. But you can see how to use the control point field.